Vaccine, yeah.
Mhm.
We have mask, we have vaccine, and then, National Night Out.
Okay.
Thanks, Eric.
Good evening, Tigard. We're here for Poolside chat, so I got my sunglasses, got my best pool outfit shirt I thought matching. So we're here, ready to go. We're a little bit early. I think we'll wait just another moment or two, and I'll probably switch to my real glasses. Hope you enjoyed a moment of Poolside. All right, staff, are we ready to go?
Good.
All right. So good evening, Tigard. Thank you for joining me tonight for my monthly chat. And I want to start by sharing some updates on masks, COVID vaccines, and also free street trees. And while I do and share all that, I hope that you will submit your questions in the chat box. The first thing I want to share is about masks and masking. And I just lost
Sorry about
my
that.
notes there. All right, so face coverings are going to be required while in the city buildings, regardless of vaccination status. This is all an update since my probably hasn't even been published yet, but my mayor's corner. So unfortunately, that went to press before we had this information. So updates: face coverings are going to be required while in the city buildings, regardless of vaccine status. The library is going to be remaining open. Utility billing in the municipal court will also be open at City Hall. However, we are going to continue to encourage everybody to access our services online, via email, or over the phone as best that you can. We will continue to follow all the advice from the Center for Disease Control and the Oregon Health Authority, and any future decisions about how we're helping to continue minimizing the spread of COVID-19. So that's the latest updates. Coming to your neighborhood, COVID vaccine, as a reminder, is free, it's safe, and it's effective, and it's easy to get. Washington County is now standing up a mobile COVID vaccine unit, and it's coming to Tigard. There are 3 upcoming dates, so get ready if you want to take these notes down. On August 12th, they will be at the H Mart from noon to 2 p.m. On August 17th, they'll be at the Fields Apartments from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then on August 20th, they'll be at the Bonita Villa Apartments from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So those are all opportunities to get your vaccine right in our community. Also excited to announce that and really just promote that our free street tree program to beautify your block is back. The street tree program seeks to increase the city's tree canopy and to beautify the community by supplying Tigard homeowners and neighborhood groups with free trees. We have a limited number of street trees available, so it's a first come, first serve sign up, and we'll put the link in the chat box for that. National Night Out. Wow, what an exciting and interesting National Night Out. You know, we missed last year due to COVID, and this year people were just excited to be outside, connecting in a safe way, and from my perspective, it was a huge success and really a great opportunity to connect with Tigard community members. I think I visited 5 or 6 different sites. Many of those I had our new youth city councilor, Oishiki Nog, with me, and she was connecting and answering people's questions. I was really enjoying that. And the community had great questions for both of us. So really want to thank the entire community for participating in National Night Out. And we will move on to some questions. Excuse me. All right, first question. With the recent heat waves and talk of climate change, I'm curious what the city is doing to address climate change. So for those of you who have watched in the past and watched these, this is probably going to be somewhat of a repeat of an answer, but whenever someone asks a question, I don't mind answering and going over that again. The city of Tigard has I think in the past, I would say decade, while I've been on the city council, or the last 7-8 years, has been, you know, I would say not super, how do I want to say this? That's not been a top priority or focus. And in the council's current council goals and goal setting for the next 2 years, we actually put that on the map as something that's a high priority. We don't have a lot of council goals, so typically we expect all of them to get done, and this is no exception. So we are going to be moving forward with a bold resiliency plan. So it's not just climate change, there's other things that are included in that. I'm going to pause for a second, staff. I'm seeing the numbers go down and down. I'm wondering if the volume or the microphone is not working. Can you guys verify? I guess people, if you can hear me, please indicate that in the chat, because I'm concerned that we don't usually have this much drop off that quickly.
Yeah,
we can be heard? All right.
Yep.
Let's see. So that's what's going on climate change. A couple of the city councilors and myself in particular are very interested in making sure that we are taking action as best we can on the things that the city can do. And there's some things, just to be totally honest, there's some things that we can do that may save us money. Electrifying our police fleet is one example. There are now vehicles that, from my perspective, are capable of delivering what the police department needs as far as performance and range and safety, that may cost a little bit more in a capital upfront investment, but because they're so much cheaper to operate and maintain, may actually save the city money. And I've been actually pushing our leadership team to evaluate that as a something that we do quickly, just because it's even the right business thing to do, not necessarily just as the result of our work on climate change. So that's what's going on in climate change and our resiliency planning. Let's see, we have another comment about, let's see, I'm waiting for Steve Street Park to be developed. Also, any chance of changing the name to something cooler? So I know we had some questions about Steve Street Park 1 or 2 months ago. Please send me or send the city your contact information, and we'll get you the latest information on where the Steve Street Park development is on the timing. And then also we can get some info on what the name possibilities are, or whether Steve Street is there to stay. So please send that in a message. Let's see, Portland released a plan about how they are spending American Rescue Plan funding. Will Tigard do the same? We absolutely will, once we have made those decisions and had discussion in a more detailed fashion. We've had some general discussions directing staff to allocate and to evaluate using our already established goals and priorities. So things that are high priorities, that need funding, that are already our objectives, are things we're going to be focusing on. We don't need to, we already have things we need to tackle. So that's an important piece to the way we're approaching that. I will also share on the American Rescue Plan that I had a discussion today along with a couple of our staff, including the city manager, with one of the assistant secretaries of Treasury at the federal government, and that is because our allocation got dramatically decreased from what we were originally told we were going to receive, and I now better understand exactly why that happened. But we're the only community in Oregon that was significantly impacted by a specific term that was in the American Rescue Plan. And because Tigard is over a population of 50,000 people, they were applying the formula that they use for, the federal government uses for distributing community development block grant funding, which meant that our allocation went from about $11.2 million down to $7.2 million. So that's a huge change. There's only one other jurisdiction in Oregon that was affected. It was the city of Lebanon, Oregon, and they were only affected by about $70,000. So that's a pretty big difference compared to our $4 million impact. So that was pretty disappointing. What we're doing some double checking to make sure there wasn't an error made in some of the formula. I'm suspecting that there may be, because I have a hunch something's not right, because Beaverton and Hillsborough are also in the same categorization that we are in sort of large metro cities of over 50,000 people, and their allocations per capita are probably close to double ours, and so something doesn't seem quite right. All right, next one. I've seen homeless individuals camping out directly outside the library. What is the city doing to manage the seemingly increasing homeless population? So this is a pretty, both a common question and a topic that's getting a lot of both attention and discussion time, both within the city of Tigard. It's another area that the city council added a very bold city council goal for this year. And then at the Oregon Mayors Association conference, which happened last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I attended, and I actually specifically went to a couple different sessions on homelessness and what's going on legally. And then I can, after we talk about that, I can talk about what we're doing specifically in Tigard. So first of all, the city attorney from the city of Medford produced a 3-page document that covers the current case law and statutory changes and updates that have just happened. So just so you know, there's a lot of moving parts on homelessness and on what's legal and what is changing, in particular in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the area that the federal appeals court that covers Oregon, California, Washington, I think Alaska, and Idaho. I know they cover Idaho because one of these cases involves the city of Boise. I'm not going to get into reading the detail line for line. If someone wants a copy of this, go ahead and request it in the chat, and we'll send it out. But there are 2 recent Ninth Circuit decisions from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, both Martin versus the city of Boise, if you want to look that one up, and then Blake versus the city of Grants Pass, are both case law that are right now things that we have to follow. And they make it very clear that we cannot prohibit people from sleeping on public property when there's no alternative place for them to go. That is considered cruel and unusual punishment, and that's what the court has found, and that's not been taken to the Supreme Court yet. I expect it'll probably end up there someday, but right now that's the law of the land in all those states that I just described. And the city of Grants Pass had tried to, I'm gonna oversimplify this, but they had tried to clarify and kind of get around some of the things that were in the Martin versus Boise decision. Again, this is an oversimplification, but the court struck that down too and made it very clear that that was basically bupkis. That's again my shorthand version for residents of Tigard. And so where that leaves us is that at least on public property, we've got a complicated set of legal requirements that we have to navigate. The legislature also passed a couple different laws in the last session, and so just so you know, House Bill 3115 is a case, or not a case, excuse me, a House bill in the State House that generally clarified and made affirmative requirements that were in line, generally speaking, with the Martin and Blake cases I was just mentioning. And so they say a couple different things, or that House bill says a couple things. One, the regulation of sitting, lying, and sleeping or keeping warm and dry outdoors on public property must be reasonable as to time, place, and manner under the totality of the circumstances. So that's one thing, and the other is that it can be understood as prohibiting citywide bans on sleeping on public property, but allowing time, place, and manner restrictions so long as those restrictions are reasonable. And there's a lot of things that have been already designated as unreasonable. So there were also some changes with House Bill 3124 in the last legislative session that require notices at established camping sites and details around that, and then the handling of property after it's been removed. And then House Bill 2006, which did a couple things, including simplifying the siting of emergency shelters, and it also amended the statute regarding overnight vehicle camping on property with the consent of property owners. It broadened the definitions of from churches and synagogues and similar religious institutions to, quote, any public or private entity. It removed a 3-vehicle limitation. Regardless of the size of the facility, you could have a mega church that, houses 5,000 people on Sundays and might have, 1,000 parking spaces, but they were under prior statute, they were limited to 3 vehicles. So that's been removed. And then there is a requirement that both toilet and trash facilities are available on site. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of a lay of the land around what's going on in homelessness statewide and with case law and statutory requirements. What we're doing in Tigard is a lot, just to be honest. Not only did we establish it as a council goal, but we are actively continuing our proactive outreach with one of our community services officers in the police department, coordinating with various state and other local agencies, and really trying to meet homeless individuals where they are and offer them useful and meaningful services. And that's really important to us, trying to connect people with services that can be helpful. And we've been pretty successful with that. It's not successful all the time, and it's not, someone has to want help to be able to, or to really get engaged in helping themselves. So, not everybody's ready the first time we talk to them, but that's where repetition and making and obtaining a personal relationship can help change that dynamic. So there's some other things that are happening, and this ties kind of to the case law I was just reading about or sharing with all of you, and that is that you can have prohibitions on the kind of activity that many people don't like to see, i.e. sleeping on public property, etc., if you have bona fide shelter space that people can be using. And that has to be reasonable, though. So like having a shelter in Eugene is not acceptable. Like it has to be accessible to the people of Tigard. And so reasonable means, pretty easy to access. And the courts have made that pretty clear. So on that front, Just Compassion, along with working with our state senator and our state representative, and frankly, I need to give a shout out to State Representative Dacia Graber, as a freshman representative in the State House, helped bring $4 million to Just Compassion of East Washington County to help build a more appropriate shelter in our community on Hall Boulevard, near or on the same property that they already own. And this is a really game-changing opportunity for our community, and hopefully will help us take care of our own community. Another thing I want to say about homelessness is I hear with some frequency people talking about how these are homeless people that are just coming here. They're not from Tigard, and by and large, and we actually had a pretty lengthy discussion at our mayor's conference as well, that by and large that is actually not true. If we were to connect with, and homeless individuals generally stay within the community that they're connected to, And if we were to, at any given point in time, sort of connect with all the homeless individuals that are presently in Tigard, we would find the vast majority of them are from the Tigard local community. And to me, that means in part that it's our responsibility to take care of our community. We're also doing a bunch of stuff on trying to make housing more affordable. Tigard's viewed as a leader on that in the state, and I will just share with you that is something that we are recognized for, and we're proud of that. So I won't get into detail on that tonight, but I guess if someone wants to ask all that, then I can go into it. All right, we got another question. I understand that you've asked citizens in the Tigard area to conserve water. Today is August 5th. I just drove down Hall Boulevard and you have sprinklers going on the front lawn at City Hall. How is this leading by example? Good question. I know that we were asking and messaging particularly around conserving water when we had the chlorine shortage that was due to I think an electrical outage at the plant that produces our chlorine, and most of the chlorine for all of the West Coast, which is actually in Longview, Washington. I learned that through this, didn't know that before. But that I don't know that the strong conservation requirement is in place now, but I can certainly have staff get back to you on the watering piece. So staff, please have, if you wouldn't mind sending in your contact information as a direct message to the city, we'll get you an answer about that. Let's see, do you know what percentage of Tigard residents have received the COVID vaccine? How can we encourage our neighbors to get vaccinated? I know that data is available on the OHA website. I know Washington County has been in the 70, I think up to 75%, and then I think Heidi, a resident who just put a comment in here, says that 67% of the population in 97223 zip code has had at least one COVID vaccine dose. I don't know if someone wants to look up the 97224 zip code. Both of those zip codes have people, like if you just want Tigard, Tigard data, I don't know that that's available because those zip codes both have people that are not Tigard residents. So unfortunately, I think zip code's the best proxy we can get to. Let's see, has anyone that works for the city tried to ride a bike or walk from Fred Meyer to the new housing on 72nd or Hunziker? Not safe, also not a priority for the city. I would disagree about it not being a priority for the city. One of our objectives is to be the most walkable community in the Pacific Northwest, where all people of all ages and abilities can live interconnected lives, and that is one of our goals. So I would disagree with that. Trying to get to a place where everywhere in our community is walkable and accessible is a completely different challenge. At the suggestion of one of our city councilors a couple years ago, city staff were asked to get some general idea of how much it would cost to put sidewalks in all the areas in the city that don't have appropriate sidewalks. And I don't know if we have time for this. I was going to have people put their guesses in the chat as to what you think. Let's do this for a second. What do you think it would cost? This was in about 3 years ago dollars, so just inflated about 15% from the number I'm going to give you. But 3 years ago, how much do you think it would have cost in round numbers to put a sidewalk in every place in Tigard where there should be one but isn't one now? Let's see what kind of responses we get. We'll give you a minute on that. So we'll come back to that. Steve says, good seeing you, Mayor. Steve, good to hear from you. Let's see, we have a question about what kind of things is City Council doing to address climate change and resiliency. I did cover that earlier. I'm going to, just because we've got other things, I'm not going to cover that again right now. But I would encourage you to go back and watch that was one of the first questions I think I addressed in a pretty robust way. So I would suggest at the end of this that you that you go back and watch the beginning. Let's see. Are you considering a vaccine mandate for city employees? That would be a decision that's made by the leadership team, and really an administrative decision and not a city council decision necessarily. I don't think there's been a direction from public health officials to do that in city government yet. So I don't know that that's being considered. But I guess we can get a direct answer to you. If you want to put your information, send us a direct message and let us know how to reach you. We can at least get an answer back from the city manager about whether that is actively being discussed for employees. All right, so we've got some guesses. We've got 2 people that are guessing $1 billion. I think that's what that is.
Yep.
And then we have one that's guessing 20 million. Okay, that's pretty wide range. I will tell you the answer is somewhere between those two. And the answer is somewhere around $120 million. So that is probably 20 or 30 times what our annual capital improvement plan is for the entire city for everything. And so that's not an amount of money that we're going to be able to quickly be able to deal with. I see another guess of 650 million. It is less than that, but it is still a lot. Let's see. Next question, is the Public Safety Advisory Board still meeting? What have they been doing? They have still been meeting. Their meetings are all publicized and well documented, and certainly we can get you the latest materials. If you want to send us a message, we can certainly get that the link to that information out to you. On their work plan right now, I'm trying to remember exactly what I think they've been working on hiring, the hiring process, background kinds of things, and then training. So I think the latest. Let's see. Why is the city requiring masks when the state is not? This I think is referring to our facilities, and I think that we're requiring masks to keep city staff safe, and to keep the public while they're in our facilities safe. What other questions do we have, Tigard? Have I caught up? Staff, am I caught up on the questions?
Yeah, we got a couple more guesses on the number there. We had somebody guess 120 million and somebody guessed 50 million.
So the person that guessed 120 million, if you did that without hearing what I said, you are pretty impressive. Was that one of our former city council or one of our current city councilors?
No, Whitey Berger. Whitney.
Whitney. Okay, Berger. Whitney got it. Nailed it. All right. Maybe Whitney, you want to come work on estimating some of our other capital projects. Sounds like you got a knack for that. Let's see. Is that the COVID vaccine?
Yeah.
Because COVID is certainly not safe. What I'm seeing on my screen is the COVID safe? The answer to that is it is not safe. Is the vaccine safe? The vaccine is safe and effective. There's robust evidence to suggest that, and it is far safer to get a COVID vaccine than to be subject to getting COVID and the risk of getting COVID. Let's see, will the fireworks be rescheduled?
Yep, that's the question.
Who's that question from?
Let's see, it looks like it's from Jim.
So we are working on that actively. I think I talked about that last month, and I think our hope is to get it rescheduled around the time of our 60th anniversary as a city. That is maybe a challenge. We've had an aspirational goal to make that happen. Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue has said that they're supportive, and we can try to work and figure it out. I think there's concern about the heat and temperatures and the way the wildfire season is going to continue, and a couple other considerations. So it may be a little bit later than our anniversary, which, for those that don't know, our anniversary as a city is September 11th, interestingly enough. So that this year will be our 60th anniversary, and my hope was that we could put a safe, full fireworks show, professional fireworks show on around that time, and I'm still going to push for that to happen. But if TVFNR can't support it during that time, which I will just tell you, hearing reports from them, they are absolutely exhausted. Frontline firefighters are working 48 hours on, 24 hours off, which is an absolute grueling work conditions right now. And so, trying to push them when they're in that environment on the front line is not something I want to necessarily push them super hard on. All right, Christy says mandate vaccinations, please, and masks until numbers go down. This is not a drill. I would agree it is not a drill, and I most definitely support everybody getting vaccinated and everybody wearing masks. The functions of public health are a county and a state coordinated activity and directed activity, so advocating there is definitely the right place if you want to see that type of action. And as far if you're referring to us requiring vaccinations of city staff and masking's already in place in all city facilities, back in place regardless of vaccination status. And I don't know where the city is on with requiring vaccines, but that's a question that if you want an answer to, we can certainly get you one. Send us a direct message and we'll get you details on where the leadership team has come on that. All right, we've got a question about how one can get involved with committees at the city of Tigard. Someone's interested in helping improve walkability and zoning in our community. So love that question, and there are lots of opportunities. We have boards and commissions that directly advise the city council on all of those subjects. Transportation would probably be, they do a lot of work on pedestrian mobility and walkability, and on any kind of non-motor movement, I would say. And so the Tigard Transportation Advisory Committee is one, and then zoning is more done at the Planning Commission would be the place to get engaged there. So those would be things that are committees that I would look at, and then I can have staff put the link in right now to go apply for boards and commissions. So staff will do that in a moment. And let's see, is the Southwest Corridor coming to Tigard in any shape or form? Is that exactly how the question was asked? I love that. I like that. I was asked that question a couple different times on National Night Out night, and I'll give the update I provided then. Right now the federal infrastructure package may offer some opportunity to maybe get more federal funding and maybe need less local funding, but the federal government and the way that they've funded these types of projects in the past, and I think will continue to be the case, is that there's at least a requirement of some sort of a local match. The Southwest Corridor is a $2+ billion project, which means, and traditionally that's meant at least a 50% match. So we would have needed at least $1 billion or $1.2 billion. I think what was planned actually was around $990 million was what was planned last summer to be invested, or planned last year when the regional transportation package did not pass. So what I can share about that is that we've got to have some sort of a local match, and that's a lot of money. Even let's say the federal government even decreased the amount to 30%. 30% of $2 billion is still a lot of money, and it's going to have to come regionally. That's not going to be raised just in the Southwest Corridor. I guess I should also share that there is active work and discussion being done within the region among elected leaders and leaders of other organizations like TriMet, trying to figure out how to obtain the local match and whether the project has viability under some of the new infrastructure package. So that's where the Southwest Corridor is at. I don't know. Someone was asking timing. There's not going to be specific timing on that. There's too much that's got to be worked through. Let's see. Has the city spent the funds from the police services levy? The city has delivered on, I think almost the last report I saw, almost every single one of the things that we were supposed to be spending that money on. We were, and we actually can't spend the money on other things. So the way the levy works, you can only spend the money on the things that were approved in the levy. So we're following the law on that front. But to give you a status report, I think the only thing that was still, there was one, I think, support position either in property and evidence or records, and then there was one school resource officer that I think was still being hired. I think the patrol officers are now all on the line. I think originally we thought that was going to be challenging and take a lot longer. Some of the dynamics in police recruiting have changed, and we're a relatively desirable neighborhood to be policing in. And so we have been, and there have been some other changes that have allowed us to beef up our patrol officers more quickly than I think originally thought. Mostly things that we had no idea were going to be happening after the murder of George Floyd and changes in the transit policing in Portland that we were participating in, being reimbursed by TriMet, but we are no longer participating in that program, and that the whole thing's been kind of revamped and is now the responsibility of the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office and the Sheriff Reese. So I hope that answers the question on police services levy. I want to touch one other thing. We've really, because of COVID, we've really been struggling getting officers through the training, the very robust training on advanced crisis intervention and de-escalation. We felt that was really important, but most of those trainings were offered in person, and that was really, really challenging to try to make happen. I see, is there a start date for the 217 expansion project on the Hall and 99 and Faffel? And the answer to that is in the next year or so, probably year to 18 months. And they're actively working on, they being ODOT. So the Oregon Department of Transportation is the agency that is sort of managing and conducting that project. How about the city also stop permitting clear cutting of old growth trees?
For housing developments and instead maintain the existing tree canopy and in turn the beauty of the community. Example, corner of Southwest 79 and Bonita, not a single tree was planted or maintained.
So the trees being planted, that absolutely won't stay that way. I've lived near that development, and that development will, in any new development, if trees are being removed, and we do have incentives to try to have developers keep large old trees. That's not always possible depending on what they're trying to achieve from a development perspective, but what they are required to do is meet our tree code requirements, which are pretty robust and require that the tree canopy, there's a very scientific way of measuring tree canopy, and they will be required to meet that, which meet the requirements of our code, which requires, I think, at 30 years out, like a 40% tree canopy. And they have to explain and demonstrate that with landscape architect and an arborist before they even get a permit. So that will certainly change at that development, because it'll change it. It has to change at every development before they complete and get a certificate of occupancy. So while you see a bunch of horizontal development that's been done there, there has not been vertical development, i.e. the actual buildings being built. You've seen infrastructure and, you know, the groundwork. But once construction is done of the housing, there will certainly be trees that will ultimately meet our tree canopy requirement. Do we have other questions? Are they rolling in? Tigard, you've kept me busy tonight. If you're taking a break, I'll put my pool glasses back on for a minute.
Slow down, don't put the floaty on yet.
Okay, we got more?
Well,
All
one,
right.
thank you for the free street trees, but would also be nice if someone had accountability for the wimpy little sidewalk trees developers put in and then let die after a year.
I believe they're required to keep them alive, and it's meant to, it's a length of time that I think is actually 3 years, and they're required to do that, and if not, they have to replace them. And once they make it to 3 years, I think the evidence is that they, by and large, are able to manage on their own. So that question sort of has an assumption in it, I think, that's not totally accurate, but that's the detail on that.
All right, the next one is about Washington Square. Any status update on that Washington Square Old Sears building project? Are they still planning on developing that area?
I think it's still planning to be developed. I think that the timeline with COVID is what is in question, and they continue. I think we talked about that a couple months ago. Someone asked a similar question, and you know, the owners of Washington Square are very keen in actually redeveloping that in a very pedestrian friendly way, and in a way that supports housing and people living, working, and playing all in the same place without needing an automobile. And we're very supportive of that. How that happens and the details around it are still being worked through. But I think that project had made it through a lot of the review process, land use wise and permitting. But I don't think they've proceeded just because of the financial uncertainty of COVID. So I would suspect they'll be I'm sure they're reevaluating that regularly. I have not heard them say, okay, now we're going to do it right now. But I think it's pretty clear. Washington Square is one of their top 5 properties in their whole portfolio of like 85 plus malls, and so you can bet that Washington Square is going to be getting top attention from them. Do we have any other questions?
We're caught up right now.
Coming up? All right.
We're caught up here.
Oh, we're caught up.
We are caught up for now.
Well, it is 7:15, Tigard. If you've got any last questions or comments for me, please put them in the chat. Be happy to talk through them. You're also always welcome to reach me on my cell phone, 503-810-0269. Again, 503-810-0269. Or my city email at Jason, let's see, it's not at Jason, jason@tigard-or.gov. So if you want to meet or connect in other ways and want to have a two-way verbal discussion, either safely in person or on the phone, or even by FaceTime or video chat of some sort, I am happy to do that as well.
All right, this is a little lengthy here, Mayor. Very concerned that cities allowing the developer of River Terrace to change density plans and largely ignore the community plan that so many invested time, community feedback, resources, and tax money into the exception of the project. Examples of this include moving higher density dwellings closer to existing neighborhoods versus along main streets, moving lower density to main streets to give the appearance of open neighborhoods while increasing the overall density and stretching zoning rules, reduction of wetlands, reduction of community spaces and parks, elimination of single level senior residential areas, limited parking for residents so that cars will overflow and park into existing neighborhoods, crowding already busy residential neighborhoods. Developer has been very disrespectful to existing neighborhoods along the new development lines by breaking sidewalks with heavy equipment being driven through residential neighborhoods to access the developments, leaving huge rocks and debris on streets and damaging cars. We haven't had a city-led community meeting on River Terrace South in years. However, the developer was very clear in a meeting last month that they are going to get city approvals needed and move forward with their plan. Regardless of community disapproval, they have already torn down tree stands where hawks' nests dug into and reduced wetlands off of Bull Mountain.
So that's a very robust set of feedback and questions, and something that I think, I guess we can talk very generally about. I'm a little confused about the nexus between River Terrace South, which is not under construction in any way, shape, or form, and then all the comments about what's happening in areas of River Terrace where it sounds like construction is happening now. I would ask whoever sent that message in, it sounds like we need to have a more direct conversation and involve a bunch of the community development and engineering staff. I'd be happy to help make that happen if you want to email in to me and or send a direct message into the staff or the city Facebook account that the staff manage. We can make that happen, and the city recorder's office does take notes from this meeting, and I will make sure. I think Jesse is the city recorder, the deputy city recorder that's covering tonight, and I will make sure by my verbal note here that we follow up on that and get an appropriate discussion moving along. I have not heard those kinds of concerns related to development in River Terrace in quite some time, and we've had generally a pretty good relationship with what used to, the primary developer had been Polygon Homes. I think they've been bought twice since then as that industry's been consolidating, and so I don't know whether that is changing some of the dynamic there, but we can certainly put the right discussion together, and I'd be happy to participate and attend to that as well. I don't think we can tackle that whole thing tonight, though.
Mr. Mayor, Michael Mentes says thank you for being so accessible and answering questions.
Thank you, Michael, for the feedback.
Jari, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but he also says thanks for being accessible. He had a number of questions tonight that you answered, including one about Washington Square. And now we are caught up after that.
All right. And yes, Taylor Morrison is the current developer, and it was Polygon Homes Northwest, then I think it went to William Lyon Homes, and now Taylor Morrison. So correct on, if you're tracking the developers and the consolidation and the development and home building community, that's who's got much of the River Terrace property. Any other final questions? I'll give you 20 or 30 seconds, Tigard. Otherwise, it's going to be mayor out. Gotta go back to the sunglasses. Heading to the pool. Good night, Tigard.